Well, good evening, colleagues. Well, I'll keep this to 2 minutes because Marit's covered most of the stuff that UNDP does. So, well, I'm the head of data, technology, and AI enablement at UNDP. I'll talk a little bit about that. But for you to give an understanding of what UNDP is, we are the UN's development program, UNDP, and we are present in over 190 countries with boots on the ground in over 170 countries. We have officers on the ground in 170 countries. And we have a broad mandate, as we call it, because we work on gender, to climate, to crisis response, to energy, planet, many areas. Naturally, you go to a developing country, and we are there in one of the programs, in governance, in government reforms. We are engaged there. That means we have about 5 to 6,000 projects in flight at any given moment. So that's a lot of knowledge. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to pause a little bit on UNDP and talk about the genesis of this journey and how we came across Open Social as well. So when you generally talk about UN, it is this organization where you get the governments together and discuss things behind closed doors. And back in 2013, the Secretary General at the time decided, instead of us, the governments, doing that, let's invite people to tell us what the UN should be focusing on, what the world should be focusing on, because we are not just governments, we the peoples of United Nations. That's the first line of our charter. We represent the people, so we want to hear their voices. We want to be inclusive in this process. So we open the doors of the UN, as we would like to say it, through a platform, online platform, where we collected diverse set of voices on what people's priorities are. And we reached out to over 10 million people. Yes, that number is right, over 10 million people, from youth groups to activists to academia to civil society, on hearing what their priorities are. And the result of that are the Sustainable Development Goals. The 17 goals that you see, the global goals that you see, they were created by people. And technology played a big part of that. And we managed the technology ecosystem behind that. One of the massive Drupal installations at the time, basically. And this model, we wanted to continue for every conference, every outcome that we wanted to bring from that point onwards. So we continued this model for Rio Plus 20, which was a big conference focusing on 11 thematic areas like forest, oceans, like that. And we invited people, instead of just inviting 200 people to Rio and trying to agree on an outcome, we had consultations for about 6 to 8 months with different people. It was so successful. The government of Brazil identified someone for oceans as the facilitator, and there was someone in the community who was so active. The government of Brazil invited that person to become a co-facilitator of the session. And this model proved very successful in not just capturing knowledge and having a proper outcome. And when people actually arrived at the conference, they've been talking to each other for a while on the platform. So the human connections were so important as well in order to affect the outcome. Now that brings me back to, so at UNDP we were managing this. That brings me back to UNDP. Like I said, we have like 5 to 6,000 projects. Most of our knowledge is with our staff on the ground. And it is lost. As you know, it is very difficult to capture tacit knowledge, what's in people's heads. It is lost in laptops somewhere. It is lost in short-term consultancies somewhere. Even my travel here from New York, when I go back, I have to write what we call a back to office report. Right? I've read many of these, useless basically. I might have a great conversation with someone about a partnership, and the essence of that is not captured. What is captured is I had a conversation with this person, that's it. Right? So the quality is a massive problem. Even in the knowledge that we capture, quality is a massive problem. And so we needed a platform, and then soon also we realized we are not in tech business. Well, UN is not, at least not yet, in that. So we needed a partner. I couldn't manage a massive Drupal system. That's not my core business. I wanted to focus on what we are good at, which is convening and delivering value to people. So I was looking at not just a vendor or a system, but someone who has a vision and a partner for the UN. And that is when I had a chat with Taco, and I immediately bought the vision, not the platform that he had, uh, because that is something we want to grow with as well. And that's what you see today with the SparkBlue platform that you saw earlier. And it is our community platform, it is our knowledge management platform, it is our core platform to capture knowledge, engage, and connect with others as well. Now that brings me to the previous model. Where did we come here? Earlier, the practice was if someone, let's say, want to do a social protection system or government giving cash to small and medium enterprises program in Sri Lanka, which is where I'm from, by the way. If that person, he or she wants to start a project, would send an email to someone in HQ, then that person, what are the best practices, what should I be aware of, what are the documents I need, and that person will send email to another bunch of people, then that person have to collect the responses coming in and then synthesize and send it back to the user. So this was a massive problem. Everything was lost in emails. So we use the platform to add a face to the email, basically, first of all, because now you know who you're talking to. Those people connections are so important. And also provided a platform for people to meaningfully engage, systematically engage in certain topics while capturing the knowledge around those topics as well. And moving forward, like I said, for conferences as well, we offer this as a service now to conferences. So you don't just have a conference where you invite 200 people. Be inclusive, open this. You want to get diverse opinions as much as possible. Even in UNDP, not a single, even our strategic plan, not a single framework, not a single management document is getting passed through without doing consultations. One of the first questions when you submit something to one of the management committees is, has this been consulted? Has this been on SparkBlue? Tell us about the consultations you have done, not just within UNDP, because you're then talking to an echo chamber. Have you consulted outside? And that is the value of the platform as well. And what we have done in SparkBlue is actually we brought in every consultation, every conference that you have brings in people. Imagine one conference brings in 300 people, the next conference brings in 400. We are now at 40,000 members through that. So any topic, not just random members, we know who they are. If for a certain topic, we know the audience that we need to target. I was so excited to see Morit's presentation, because now we can even target more on who we want to reach to. We are obviously with over 190 countries. It's used by 12 other UN agencies as well, and it is supporting the 17 goals that I described. So that is the history of knowledge, sort of how we arrived at this point in UNDP. And here are some sort of results from some of the youth-led consultations shaping Sahel's future. You see, we are very outcome focused when we come to these consultations. All of you must be having this problem. Sometimes you need to get comments on a document that you have done, and you send it around, and 100 people comment, like million track changes that you have to do. We have a very structured method where we break this down into sections. We call it thematic windows. So first 2 weeks we are discussing about this topic, and the facilitators are experts in this, in getting right type of feedback, sort of canceling the noise. Basically, when you have public consultations, that happens a lot as well, and getting the right type of consultations. Similarly, I'm once again showcasing results from that consultation here as well. So you see, this is platform is built for these consultations, but things are shifting. Obviously, the common problem everyone has these days. On one side, all development agencies are at a funding constraint, and what happens is when that happens, when funding is an issue, knowledge management becomes a nice to have. Right? When actually that is the most valuable thing when you're talking about efficiency, because that person in Bolivia who wants to do a social protection system should not be starting from scratch. There should be knowledge from the person in Sri Lanka who did that, and that knowledge is captured here, and we have a established mechanism to bring that knowledge whenever they need it, and at their fingertips as well. So obviously AI is disrupting many areas in UNDP and UN in general as well. We are working on efficiencies a lot, where we don't duplicate each other's efforts, and knowledge communities are getting dismissed as nice to have, like I said, and sometimes it's critical, sometimes life critical lessons are in some of these knowledge platforms with knowledge management as well. So this requires a strategic shift in thinking of our operational models, in thinking of our strategies in approaching knowledge management. Now we are moving beyond old repositories into knowledge-enabled ecosystems, basically. What that means is those siloed initiatives that generally happens in any organization, we are bringing that together, have continuous learning and adaptation. And also one of the big shifts is we are framing knowledge not as a function, but as a driver for innovation. In fact, in our new strategic plan, digital AI and knowledge is identified as an accelerator of whatever we do in the field. And obviously the UN 80 vision gives us the mandate for efficiencies, bringing all of these together on data, community insights. But the strategic shift in new operating model is, we, like I said, every conference or every paper, every strategy had a little community around that, right? So moving away from small number of, it has grown from large, like global communities to supporting hundreds of like smaller, more agile networks. We call it issue-based networks. So instead of having a big network on, let's say, gender equality, we are focusing a lot on issues like, let's say, gender-based violence is one of the issues. So like I said, even more targeted communities, more targeted content. And that is where knowledge management in general is moving. And we want to, with the support of AI, AI is good in identifying patterns, identifying correlations between topics. And also not just identifying correlations, but identifying the deep connections between poverty and probably climate change, poverty and probably gender-based violence, right? Because of all the knowledge that it has. So AI-enabled discovery, once again, I was very excited about the previous presentation, will enable us to do so. And also, one thing that's not on the slide is we will relook at how we capture knowledge as well. Moritz, I was very excited. Is he here today? Oh, he's there. I was very excited to see that feature where you can use AI to generate content, because very practically, I know this coming from a non-English speaking country as well, where English is not the first language. People have brilliant ideas, but they are very scared to openly put it in a platform. And very recently, I have seen a massive improvement in engagement, because language is not a barrier anymore. If I have ideas, AI can polish my language a little bit. So very excited to see that feature, because I think that's going to send our engagement levels really high. Because obviously, as a big international organization, language is one of the biggest barriers for us, and that is cultural as well. I might think if, oh, I have a brilliant idea, but I don't know if the way I put it in English is not the best, so people will think less of me. So those we are going to use those features. For example, AI can actually now read some of my emails as well. Instead of me trying to draft that back to office report from scratch, I can ask it to read my last 10 emails with Taco and come up with a summary of what I have presented here and read my presentation. So there are new methods of capturing it. Even meetings can be recorded. We could have strategic conversations with people in countries and capture that tacit knowledge that's in their head, just simply by recording the meeting and enabling transcription. So we will use these new methods to capture knowledge and AI to synthesize knowledge and AI to find those correlations, find the contextual understanding around topics as well, and pitch or shift SparkBlue not just as a community platform, but as a living knowledge map for the organization, and not just for UNDP, but across the UN as well. So that will be the vision for our future. And anyone who has done networking like an online community platform would say the biggest problem is actually finding the right audience or building the right network, because this is something takes a lot of time if you're building something from scratch. To build that trust, why do I need to spend next 10 minutes of my life drafting a reply to that question? Is a big thing to build. That trust is a big thing to build. You cannot simply email a bunch of people and ask them to come in and engage on the platform. There are layers and layers of work that needs to happen to do that. So come join with us, have a chat with me afterwards if you have any sort of consultation that you need to get done on the platform. And we not just the technology, but we also have the layer on top of it, the facilitation layer, the know-how, technical know-how on how to do that. And we have a great partner in Taco to grow with as well with these new AI features coming in. And we will even have a more robust platform moving forward. Thank you, colleagues. I kept my presentation short because I wanted to sort of get your ideas as well. That's my email address if you want to reach out to me, and also I'll be around as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Gayan. That was very great. I must say your voice is very soothing. It was really nice to listen to you. Any questions? The floor is open. Yep. Be careful with this thing. Just hold it.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. I loved it. I love what you said about like the living knowledge map and how, your vision for AI and how you can see it happen. There's a lot of ideas there. If you could think of one of the things that you would like, if AI was perfect, if the software was perfect, everything was perfect, what would be like the hardest, most complicated, and most critical thing you'd love to see it just magically solved? Not what's necessarily practical now, but what you'd see as like, you know, I have my magic wand, it would solve exactly this thing out of the ideas you had.
Wow. Okay, if I'm in the field, I always put myself in someone in the field, basically. If I can have the knowledge of the entire organization, 107, 190 plus implementing countries, and many of the projects fail because of the same conditions happening over and over again. If I can learn from the knowledge, if AI can help me, a combination of all the knowledge that the organization has on why generally a project failed. When you plan for government changes, for example, right? That is something AI should capture from all the knowledge, but also get the hard data from the country on this is your target audience. And that is, now if I go to any LLM and do a research on I could do a research, agentic research on what I'm saying. Get the hard data on gender equality in this country. How many women are employed, and based during COVID, how many women lost their jobs, and how many MSMEs were closed down because of that. Now, what I don't have is that unique knowledge an organization would have, which is not available on the public domain. If AI is perfect, if it can pull everything from the public domain on around the country, this is the country context, and if it can pull the nuances that is unique to UNDP, that is unique to the UN system. By the way, we have access to certain areas, certain countries that no one else has access to, not even private sector as well, especially in crisis context. So you can imagine the type, this is sort of gold for insurance companies or risk assessment companies. So we have some unique knowledge on the ground. If I can get that, if I can get AI to do that, that will be my goal. Sorry, that was a long answer.
Repeat it back. It's like the biggest thing is you feel there's a lot of these projects that fail, but if they wouldn't have failed if they just knew more about what you did and all the information and the previous ways it's done, or things even outside the UN and things inside it. And if you could magically make every single individual person on the field turbo powered with just all that information quickly, you believe a lot more projects wouldn't fail. And you think that would be like, it would be better use of money, you'd see more success, and you'd see those things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like you said, having that information when they need it as well. Generally, you report a project has failed after the project ended. That's not when we need it. So having the information at their fingertips, basically.
Yes, thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Gayan, and thanks for being here all the way from New York. Just arrived in Amsterdam.
My pleasure. I arrived this morning, literally this morning.
And you actually the oldest client that we have, because you mentioned we were talking and I pitched you the vision. It was partly because we were still building open social at the time, and yeah, I think the global dev hub, as we called it at the time, was one of the first communities that we launched. So it's very nice to see it grow into SparkBlue. And now you mentioned there's a lot more UN agencies that joined the project, UNESCO and UNICEF. As I understand, within the UN ecosystem, this is kind of rare because of the siloed operations. Can you share a little bit more about how you see that develop for SparkBlue? Because the name, it's not UNDP community, right? It's Blue, which is bigger than that. Where do you see this grow into in terms of platform, community, network, and how does the UNDP envision these relationships with all these other UN agencies?
Thank you, Taco. It's once again a great question. Even the name SparkBlue was very strategic, not to have UNDP heavy branding there as well. That was a very strategic decision made by my colleague Nina, who some of you might know, and Frederick is here as well, who leads on this stuff. It is so. It's even within UN, there's no competition here. That is why we went with SparkBlue, and like I said, if certain things are taken care of for you, then you can focus on generating value rather than focusing on, first of all, technology, which is taken care of, building a network, which is taken care of, people who know how to run a consultation, taken care of, people who know how to guide a consultation in a certain direction, especially public ones. I've seen just when you open public consultations, people pasting that this is as a comment, single comment, or it's once again one more thing for AI. Having those capabilities, basically coming together where you can simply go to someone and ask them to take care of that. So that headache is off mine. I can focus on whether this is a strategic plan of UNICEF or any other agency. I can focus on that rather than all of the other things. So that is what bringing together, and especially in the new UN80 efficiency agenda, it is pushing us towards working together, not to duplicate whatever we are doing as well. So I think moving forward, even more and more UN agencies and more UN initiatives, you will see us as one UN rather than bunch of agencies. So I think this platform sort of is a pioneer in that direction, because one of the platforms very visibly out there where all the other UN agencies are using as well.
Thank you so much. Yes, Zarko.
A specific question. I think your last slide or one of the was talking about going from a few large global communities to many issues-based. So could you speak more about that transition, how it happened, why it happened? To me, it suggests the maturity of the system, that system becomes more mature, so people kind of go into more specific themes, and how that's supported through like resources. Does it mean that the smaller issues-based communities are essentially getting to the point of self-managing, meaning that they don't require like a dedicated manager to keep driving engagement and content, all that kind of stuff?
It's exactly that as well, because for one, it becomes hyper relevant to whatever that you're working on, right? It's a maturity. I'm not saying we have everything perfect. Basically, it's a maturity that you are working towards. We used to have these big networks in all of our thematic areas. They're massive networks with 10,000 people, and majority of them were just passive listeners. When I say majority, this is statistically about 95% don't engage at all, but they're listening. They're listening. The usual suspects, the 5%, always engage. But what we are seeing, the shift is once you go hyperlocal into that topical area, the engagement is much more higher than in larger networks. So because people feel like, oh, this is my area basically, so they can rally around a topic that they like or they're interested in or they have expertise in. We see this shift happening from larger networks to that. Because of that, also the other side obviously is the resources, shrinking resources for everyone. We don't have dedicated community managers moving forward, where it is their primary job to manage the networks. We will have people in teams whose primary job is their subject matter area, and this is where once again AI can help as well in terms of managing these issue-based networks. And what we are seeing is you don't have to do extensive moderation in some of the issue-based networks as well, because the number of people rallied around that are small. They naturally moderate themselves as well in many of these cases. But when you have issue-based networks, the problem is how do we bring you're creating like it's a thousand flowers bloom approach basically, right? So how do you capture the knowledge? And that is where actually AI can come in and help us there. Earlier, we didn't intentionally want to do that because we didn't want to create silos. But now with the identification, with the correlations that AI can make, we can move in that direction.
In the technical follow-up, so does that mean that, for example, you have gender that can be an organization within, and then you can have, I don't know, 15 subgroups. One can be gender-based violence, another can be like whatever, and that can be like 20 people, 30 people. Is that how you actually set it up?
That is how it is organically growing. It's not set it up, basically. So we have a very dynamic taxonomy now, where taxonomy is informed by the topics, not the other way around. It's not a very authoritative taxonomy. We have obviously the strategic plan levels, but from there onwards, going downwards, it's very flexible and agile to the topics that are emerging as well. Sometimes what we are seeing is there are topics emerging that we wouldn't have even thought about in the past. AI governance, for example, by the way. It was always about AI governance, about the frameworks that is needed for AI governance. For the first time, we are seeing a topic emerging, AI governance and peace and security together, for example, because people see that as a threat for peace and security because of the AI work. So these are the organically growing community emerging topics rather than us pushing it from the top.